Good evening, everybody. Been watching a lot of videos since I've got home. Been able to actually soak a lot of this in as far as uh, the support and the solidarity of everyone in the modeling community for Gavin Booth. I have I've been really I'm not usually I don't really like to mix politics. I usually don't mix that in on my channel. I usually don't mix in religion or anything like that, or some of my beliefs. But watching the solidarity of everyone in the community, as far as for the citizens in Ukraine, um, I sit back and I like to I like to soak in a lot of the current events before I even make a comment or anything in my own or on my own about world politics, things like that. No means, fashion or form do I approve what is going on in Ukraine. I look back at a lot of I love history, and my brother my brother's he is a retired history teacher, and he passed that love of history on to me. And I look back at a lot of things that's happened in my lifetime and in my parents' lifetime, uh, of things that kind of our history is repeating itself. Uh, where am I going with this? Well, if we all think back, years ago in history class, which I know history is not being taught the way it was when I was in school, um, I don't agree with that either. Um, and if we look back at the history of just the United States, if memory serves correct, back in the 1700s, England tried the same thing with us when we came over here and tried to become a sovereign democratic nation. And they didn't like it. And what did they do? They tried to do the same thing that Russia's trying to do with the Ukraine, and making us bow down to them. We basically had a king that wanted to take charge of us, and we fought them tooth and nail and ran them back to England. And we've been a democratic nation ever since. And if we keep moving, we move forward in history. We've seen tyrants jump up and just, like Vladimir Putin. I mean, if you look back at history, and like what I piggybacked on a while ago, as far as history repeats itself, we look back at, let's say, back in, World War II. I could go back, I mean, not just World War II, but World War One. We go back to the Civil War, where we fought amongst ourselves. Brothers fought against brothers because of political issues. And then we go, we move forward, and we move up into into the 20th century, and during World War One, and we were fighting a tyrant, technically, of Germany. They thought they had the upper hand, and they were going to take territory that they wanted as their own. And we, as a you know, as a country that said, no, 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 we're not going to allow you to do that, we helped, stop that invasion of another tyrant. And then in World War II, just, a mere, 30 years later, I mean, you think about 30 years, World War II started. That's an amount of time. My son is 30 years old. I think back to when he was born 30 years ago, and what this nation, the United States, was possibly going through. And then you look back at World War II when you had, the Nazis trying to, overthrow Europe. And we, as a nation, came to the defense of those allies that we still hold dear today, and helped stop tyranny and communism, technically, from overthrowing their countries. And then we keep moving forward, into the present time. We've seen dictators. We've seen, you know, back in the '60s, Russia reared their ugly head and said, we're going to put, we're going down to Cuba and we're going to be knocking on your back door with nuclear missiles. And we played that card with them again. And guess what? They packed up, they left Cuba. That was the Cuban Missile Crisis. And then we jump into the Vietnam War. We jump into, the as far as everything that happened with the nation of Kuwait when Saddam Hussein in Iraq tried to invade their country. You got this one little peon that thinks he's bigger and badder than anyone and has more power, but I want more territory. The same thing happened to him, and then we look back at history, and here's we've got this other guy that Osama bin Laden. He didn't like America, so he come in. He tried to knock our towers down, and we went over there. And we fought that battle with them for years and lost many a life because of it. But you know what? It didn't come down to them invading us. They come over here and knocked our towers down, yes. But that was it. We didn't stand for it. But everybody, I've watched, I don't want history to repeat itself, but it looks like it's happening. I mean, you've got a dictator, which is, the mighty big red army. They're picking on a small country, but a very sovereign country that's never caused them any harm. I want your land, and I want to overpower you. But the solidarity that we, as one of the most powerful nations in the world, needs to step up. We have never let anyone walk on any of our friends as far as allies or anything like that. But to see the emotion, I watched Gavin Booth's video, but when I seen his emotions and what he's dealing with, and what he saw personally, war is an atrocity. It is until it's in your back door. And we don't, I prayed feverishly for that, for him, for what he had to experience and what the country of Ukraine is having to experience. War is not something I would wish on anyone. Nothing good comes from it. I look back at history and how it's unfolding, and I always say that history does repeat itself. And it looks like there's a possibility that it's repeating itself again. How do we stop that? We stand up to the ones that are being the bully. We've always done that as a nation. But we also stand up and we're unified as one. And I totally support the people of Ukraine. It's, I look back and I'm blessed each day to go to work and arrive home safely and not have to worry about the possibility of a missile strike of an invading 40-mile force at my back door. I thank God each day that I'm in a country that allows me that freedom, that allows me to come and do and enjoy the hobbies and the freedoms that I'm allowed. I look back and I was watching Gavin's, and I've watched everyone's. I've watched everyone's response to this. I watched Gavin's, and it was just heartbreaking for me. And it was, I heard the raw emotion from him of what he had to experience, and I would not wish that on anyone. I've watched my friend Luca C. Matt over there, and I watched his emotions. And it's time for us as a community to set our emotions to the side. I mean, we all share a common bond of building what we enjoy. This is my escape each day. When I come home from work, I'm allowed this pleasure where I think back on, folks over in the Ukraine that can't do that now because of an invading force. How would you feel if you knew that just right down the road there was an invading force about to come knock on your door? They ain't gonna knock on your door, they're gonna kick it in, they're gonna drag you out screaming tooth and nail. That's war. Do I agree with that? No, I do not at all. Do I stand unified, shoulder to shoulder with the citizens of the Ukraine? Damn right I do. God forgive me. But as God is my witness, if something like that was to happen here, I'd be afraid to see what happened. This country would fold. But when I allow that, I'd fight tooth and nail just like the people in Ukraine are doing. I stand for y'all.